Hey, what's going on, sports fans? It is yours truly, TJ Jones. And yes, I am the host of the Gumbo Pod Sports Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, making the Gumbo Pod a part of your listening and viewing pleasure. On this edition, we're going to be breaking down divisional round Saturday. We're going to be talking about the games that's going to take place on Saturday. And of course, tomorrow, if you're watching this on a Saturday, we'll be breaking down Sunday's games. But I really do appreciate your time. I ask that you subscribe to the State of the Saints Podcast Network channel. You get all different types of podcasts here, not just about sports, just pop culture if you're into that type of stuff. Mental health, if you're into that type of stuff, this is the channel to be. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the divisional round of the playoffs. You got some teams that made their way through the wild card round. Of course, you have the number one seeds. They're going to be playing for the first time after coming off a first round bye. But you look at these teams on today, you got the New York Giants, a team that a lot of people thought probably wouldn't make the playoffs. You've seen some promising things coming from them, but, they got into the playoffs. A lot of people didn't expect for them to get past the wild card round, especially going up against the Minnesota Vikings at home. But the New York Giants, they stood strong. That's a testament to Brian Daboll, the head coach of the New York Giants, bringing in a different type of attitude, bringing in a different type of aggression, and those guys bought into it. And you have Daniel Jones, who probably played one of his best games of his career, if not the best game of his career. And you also have Saquon Barkley, a guy who has been dealing with injuries over the past couple of years. But every time he's in and he's relatively healthy, he always makes an impact. And I don't think anybody made more of an impact than those two individuals. And also you have to look at some of the young wide receiver group. These guys aren't household names, but what they do is they go out there and they play for one another. And they got the job done versus a Vikings team who won double-digit games and a lot of people consider to be Super Bowl contenders, which turned out to be more of Super Bowl pretenders. But the New York Giants move on, and they have a familiar foe taking on a team that's in their division, the Philadelphia Eagles, who are a number one seed. The Philadelphia Eagles, they started off red hot, putting up big points. Jalen Hurts looking like an MVP candidate. You got the offensive line, probably one of the best in football. And this isn't a team that wasn't complacent. You have to give credit to Howie Roseman, the GM of the Philadelphia Eagles. This guy wasn't complacent. He was throughout the entire season trying to find ways to make this team even better. He brought in Ndamukong Suh. He brought in Robert Quinn earlier in the season. He made a trade with the New Orleans Saints for C.J. Gardner-Johnson, a guy who was tied for most interceptions in an entire league. And then you also have some really good cornerbacks on each side. So these guys really want this. They really want to win a championship, and this is the way that you do it. And all of that winning, all of those moves got them the number one seed. But of course, down the stretch, the injury bugs start to show up. You had Lane Johnson, who was injured. He's supposed to get surgery. He decided to forego the surgery in order for him to be able to play in the postseason. And of course, Jalen Hurts, who's been dealing with a shoulder injury. But of course, I don't think that Jalen Hurts probably would have played in the last game of the season if they would have won with Gardner Minshew, which they couldn't have. They lost the game versus the Dallas Cowboys. They lost in an upsetting fashion to the New Orleans Saints. The Saints shocked them. I'm pretty sure they thought that they would get the job done there, but the Saints ended up winning that game. So Jalen Hurts had to come in on the last game of the season and play that game. But of course, they played the Giants, and the Giants already had a playoff spot. They couldn't move their positioning, so they decided to sit a lot of guys. So the Philadelphia Eagles ended up winning the division, playing against some guys that probably would have been playing in preseason. But nevertheless, these two teams are going to play for real. And you look at both of these teams, none of them are going to be laying down for one another. Number one, they don't like each other because they play in the same division. And number two, that this is an opportunity for a team to go to the NFC Championship, one step closer to the Super Bowl. Looking at the tail of the tape, you would think that the Philadelphia Eagles are just that better of a team. Even though, you know, you look at the Giants, they're doing some really good things and they play for one another. But I'm still concerned about Jalen Hurts. I understand that Jalen Hurts is, you know, a dynamic player, but I don't feel like that shoulder is fully healed, even though they probably are going to kind of numb it up in order for him to play in this game. But I still am very, very concerned at Jalen Hurts and his ability to be able to throw the football. I think that the New York Giants are going to try to get pressure on him. They're going to try to make some things very difficult for him. And if they get an opportunity to get a shot on him, they're going to. And I'm also concerned because Jalen Hurts is a quarterback that tries to get out of the pocket. He's a guy that tries to get down the field, and he's a guy that's not going to slide. You know, he's a very powerful guy. He has very good low center of gravity. He's a guy that everybody talks about, you know, the squats that he does, the 500-pound squats and all that kind of stuff. He is a guy that not afraid to absorb some punishment. So I'm just concerned about his ability when he gets out of the pocket, taking those shots that can be detrimental to his team, you know, especially dealing with a shoulder injury. That is how your bread is buttered. Yes, you can get out the pocket. Yes, you can run. But all in all, you got to be able to throw that football down the field to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and all those guys. So he has to be very, very careful at picking his spots when he wants to run and when he wants to throw. Kayvon Thibodeau, a guy who has really been coming on as of late, he definitely seems like he is the right guy to be the future when it comes to pass rushing in New York. He's a guy that can chase down your quarterback. He's a guy that will get a quarterback down on the ground, and he doesn't mind giving them a little bit of an incentive when he does it. And not to mention, I mean, you have a lot of young guys on that defensive line along with him. I mean, those guys are extremely talented. They got speed. They got athleticism. So Jalen Hurts better watch out and better pick his spots. A.J. Brown, we all know how talented he is as a wide receiver, how talented he is. He's fast. He's physical. So this is going to be a tough matchup for the cornerbacks for the New York Football Giants. Those guys made some plays last week, but of course they gave up some plays as well. And we know that A.J. Brown, I mean, this guy is incredible. I mean, this dude can make some plays. And, I mean, some of the things that he can do is just straight up impressive. Devontae Smith is a guy that's coming into his own as well. Last season, his rookie year, I mean, he made some strides and did some really good things. But when you look at him now, it seems like to me like, you know, he's a little bit more fundamentally sound. He always has been, but he's even better now. And he's a guy that can, you know, pull away from you with that speed that he has. So the Giants, they better be prepared defensively, man, because those guys can go out there and they can make some plays. Not to mention the middle of the field with Dallas Goedert, who is, you know, to me, one of the best tight ends in football. Maybe gets overshadowed by the George Kittles and the Travis Kelce's of the world, but he established himself as a really good tight end in his own right. If I had to choose, I would have to say that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win this football game, being at home, understanding the assignment, got all the talent that they have. Guys are starting to come back. I think that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to win this game, even though I think it's going to be close because it's hard for me to always just pick a runaway when you're playing against a division rivals. I don't think it's a coincidence that the Miami Dolphins played the Buffalo Bills pretty competitive last week, even though they lost the game. I think that because you're so familiar with your opponent, it's easy for you to kind of scheme against those guys. There are no secrets out there. Everybody knows everybody. You pretty much build your team around those guys in your division. So I think it's going to be a relatively close game, but I have the Philadelphia Eagles winning probably a little bit late when it comes to, this game. So I got the Philadelphia Eagles winning this game and moving on to the NFC Championship. And then you have the game that's going to come on early before this game starts. So I'm talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, these teams met each other earlier in the season in Week 10, and the Kansas City Chiefs blew the doors off them boys. I mean, just absolutely just destroyed them. Patrick Mahomes put up his best numbers of the season. I want to say he had 4 touchdowns in that game. I mean, he looked the part. I mean, we all know how special Patrick Mahomes is. We all know how talented he is. Everybody wants a Patrick Mahomes on their team. As a Saints fan, I definitely want a Patrick Mahomes on my team, dealing with this whole quarterback situation they got going on. We know how special this guy is. I mean, he threw 5,000 yards. He should be the MVP. I mean, of course, Jalen Hurts probably have something to say about that, and maybe a few other guys. But we know that Patrick Mahomes can get the job done. This is going to be a tough assignment for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They showed a Herculean effort last week, being down 27-7 in the first half, going into the half. 4 interceptions for Trevor Lawrence. I don't think you can play a worse first half than he did, but he came back out there and he threw for 4 touchdowns. It was definitely the tale of two halves when it came to Trevor Lawrence. You had Travis Etienne had 20 carries for over 100 yards. You had Christian Kirk doing some things. You had Zay Jones doing some things. You had Evan Ingram doing some things. Look, I don't think that the talent when it comes to the receiver position for the Jacksonville Jaguars is an issue. What you have is a bunch of guys. They're not household names, but what they do is they play for one another. It reminds me of some of those classic teams that the New Orleans Saints had. I hate to keep on bringing it back to the Saints, but I mean, as a fan, that's a team that I really truly follow a lot. You had a guy like a Marcus Colston. You had a guy like a Lance Moore, Robert Meacham, guys that knew their role, right? You had the downfield vertical threat. You had the guy that can get it done in the middle of the field. And then you had the guy that if he was to get pressed at the line of scrimmage, he can be able to still get the ball and maybe get that yak. And that's what you have when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars, a bunch of guys that are out there playing for one another. If the Jacksonville Jaguars want to make this game competitive, they cannot replicate what they did last week. See, the thing about it is they were able to get back into the game because their defense was able to get stops on Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense. You're not going to be able to do that when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, you have to be out there and you have to be willing and possibly be able to go toe-to-toe with this guy, right? If he throws a stiff jab, you got to be able to throw a stiff jab. If he throws an uppercut, you got to be able to throw an uppercut. You cannot afford to be behind the 8 ball because this dude can drop 50 on you. And he has those receivers and he has the running backs that can get the ball out of the backfield. They could put 50 on you. So you better be very, very careful. And if you just so happen to maybe get a lead, you better be able to pile on to that. So you cannot do what you did last week and expect to be competitive in this game. You have Doug Peterson, who is in his first year as the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. He's going up against his mentor, Andy Reid. He was on the Chiefs staff before he got his head coaching job with the Philadelphia Eagles. So this is a student versus teacher matchup. Didn't pan out first time once again for Doug Peterson. But when you look at the defense of the Kansas City Chiefs, they're second in the league in sacks. They had 55 total, which was a shock to me. But these guys can get pressure on the quarterback. They can wreak havoc. And not only that, they can stop the run. And that is not good for the Jacksonville Jaguars because they rely a lot on Travis Etienne, who went over 1,000 yards this season after coming off an injury in his rookie season. So if they can neutralize Travis Etienne, a guy who helps out Trevor Lawrence a lot, and they can get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, it can be a tough day for the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Jacksonville has some defensive players in their own right. They got Trayvon Walker, the first overall pick. I mean, they got some guys out there that can do some things, man. They got some guys that are extremely talented. You got Arden Key out there. You got really young, fast linebackers. You got some really good cornerbacks who made some noise down the stretch. So it's not like, they're lacking of anything. I always say, when a team is bad, sometimes, they inherit all of these top 5, top 10 picks and they start to pay dividends for you, right? Because, you start picking, top 5 picks, and then, those guys start to get a little bit better, if you get the right coaching and they get developed the right way. So it's not like the Jacksonville Jaguars are lacking talent. I just look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes and I just know the type of guy that he is in these type of situations. And I know that this guy is chomping at the bit to get back out there to play in playoffs. Last year, especially losing in the AFC Championship game versus Cincinnati Bengals, definitely left a bad taste in his mouth. And I think that he wants to go out there and try to do what he can to try to erase those thoughts about him, in the playoffs. So who is going to win this game? I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win this game. I think they're going to win it relatively easy. I just do not trust the Jacksonville Jaguars at this stage. I think that they have a lot of things that they can actually build on. I think they have a lot of things that they can actually grow with. But I just think that the Kansas City Chiefs, to me, are on a mission. I think that Patrick Mahomes is on a mission. I think that they want the smoke when it comes to the Buffalo Bills. I think they want the smoke when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals, whoever come out of that game. They want to be able to go out there and get back to the Super Bowl. And I just think that this is going to be a statement game. I think they're going to use this as a statement game. I think that they're going to come out there prepared, and they are going to run into a buzzsaw. I'm talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, probably going to start off a little bit, slow, probably because they had that bye week. But I just think that, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that's how I feel about those two games. I would love to hear from you. What do you think about divisional round Saturday? Who do you think is going to win? What are your keys to victory? Comment down below, like and share this video. Thank you so much for checking out the Gumbo Sports Podcast. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Previous episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Anchor FM. Till next time, I'll see you now.